the first question we have is what have your experiences been at Duke, or as a Duke student, with social action, service, community engagement? Maybe focus on a couple, or focus on as many as you want, but how have they shaped your perspective?
Sure. So the vast majority of my time spent in service at Duke has been through organizations like DSG. So for me, in terms of, the Duke community is very valuable to me, and so I've spent a lot of my time at Duke trying to get back to Duke. And it's because I'm very grateful for sort of all the opportunities that I've had, as a Duke student. It's been sort of an incredible experience for me, and I'm very grateful for that. So, I've spent my time primarily in organizations like DSG and the CCA. DSG, I was the executive vice president last year, and this year I'm the president of the Council for Collaborative Action. And so in those roles, I've tried to work on projects that have made a lasting impact to Duke, and will sort of help Duke be a success going forward. So I haven't worked in the traditional service setting while on campus, something that I did before I came to Duke. But I think that this sort of is similar in terms of the notion of giving back to the community that you belong to. So for example, I think I can go through maybe a few items and then talk about how that shapes my perspective. So, I've tried to work on the types of projects at the board that are more similar to board projects. So not one-off sort of, we're going to help out with this kind of deal, but sort of things that sort of have longevity. I think that's just as important in a traditional service role. You don't want to just be kind of coming in and saying we're going to help out with this one little project, but rather you want to be there as sort of a lasting organization for whatever particular community you're working on. So, for instance, I worked on bringing free SCI testing to Duke. I spent many years on that. And fortunately now, if you have Duke's insurance policy, you get free SCI testing. I think that's important for student health. I think it's important for a university, and I think it's something that it's an accomplishment that I'm very proud of. I've also worked on issues, student conduct issues, for instance. I've worked on advocating for the alcohol amnesty policy, so that students who don't hesitate for calling for help when they need it. And I think these things are demonstrative of my commitment to Duke. There's a whole bunch of things on my website where I talk about all the projects that I've worked on, and I don't want to go list them. But, I think that they demonstrate I have a passion for this university, and a passion for giving back, and a passion for service. Because the amount of time that goes into these projects isn't negligible, and I did them because I genuinely care about this institution.
Cool. And so how, given that impact on your view of Duke and of service, how does that propel into, and how does that inform your actions on the board?
Yeah, I think the most important thing in a young trustee is that that person be someone that board members can respect, because frankly, you're in a room with billionaires and presidents of universities and some people that run the biggest companies in the world, and you're a 22-year-old kid, and it's sort of an odd circumstance because you're the only one in the room, with the exception of the other young trustees, that's an expert on campus life. You're the least far removed from being on campus at Duke, and so that's the only thing you can really bring to the table, and you have to take advantage of that in order to gain their respect. From talking with past young trustees, that seems to be the case. So if you want to be in an environment where David Rubenstein takes you seriously, what you have to do is bring an innovative sort of perspective to the table that's respectful of the constraints that they face as board members. So, what I mean by that is you don't want someone who's going to say, we should really try this crazy idea, because that when you do stuff like that, it's important to push the board, but not in a way that demonstrates that you don't have an understanding of university affairs. And so from my time in DSG and through my service on a host of institutional committees on everything from the climate action plan to student health to parking to the curriculum, I've gained a lot of institutional knowledge that I think will allow me to be in a position to bring ideas to the table that are understanding of the constraints that the board faces in their decision-making process.
Cool. Okay, so moving forward towards a couple questions about institutionally. So number one, what are some problems or issues or challenges you see about how Duke institutionally currently supports service, social action groups?
Sure. Yeah, I think one thing that stands out is that we don't have we have a small number of students that are very activist in nature on campus, but as an institution at large, we're not necessarily an activist institution compared to the Duke of the 70s or the 80s. Part of that certainly stems from the fact that perhaps the the whole country was more activist then. But I think that it's something to be looked up to, and it's something to aspire to. And I think that at an institutional level, if you want to engage with the community, if you want to participate in service, if you want to campaign for a cause, you have to be a part of a group in order to get funding, in order to have institutional resources, in order to reserve space, in order to do all of that. So if you're an individual and you and some friends who really care about a cause want to go and do something, it's not exactly the easiest thing in the world. And so I think from an institutional perspective, if we're really committed to making sure that every single student can work on the things that they care about, we have to figure out ways to do that. So I think in terms of specifics, this means making a process available by which individuals can reserve space and meet and sort of engage in discussions that might not be affiliated with any particular organization. This means, creating a fund for students that are interested in this type of work and may need, money from, sort of the student activities fee to pay for these things. We have the money available. We have SOFC, but if you want to get money for that, you have to be part of a student group. And I just don't think that that's necessarily how it always works and how it always plays out. And I think sometimes we overlook that. And I think it's really important that we sort of reconsider that.
Cool. Okay, and then you kind of touched on some ideas, but do you have any visions for the future about how to tackle these challenges as the young trustee?
Yeah, I think at a board level, you make decisions about Duke's values and what Duke is committed to. So whether that's building a new facility or deciding on something in the curriculum, these decisions aren't going to be at the specifics of, yeah, well, I'll allocate $30,000 to do X, Y, and Z, but rather it sort of gives guidance to people that are on campus all the time. And so for me, in terms of specifics, I think that the board is going to be working on the strategic plan in the upcoming years and reevaluating that and revising that and thinking about what Duke's objectives are going forward. I think that it's crucial that we find a way for students to engage in service during their time at Duke, because I think it builds well-rounded individuals. As a liberal arts institution, we should be trying to craft students that are engaged with their communities and students that understand our mission. We want students that understand knowledge in the service of society. And so, if we're having a curricular discussion and we talk about how we integrate service, I think that there's a lot of potential with new projects like Duke Ideas to integrate service into these interdisciplinary projects that we're working on. And I think that it's an opportunity that we shouldn't miss. So I think that's number one. Number two, I think that when you're sort of thinking about the broad vision for Duke, we think about things like, we're a research institution. We really want to fund research and make sure resources are available for that. We think about, where are we lagging behind? We're lagging behind in the arts, so we should start funding the arts. And we've done all of these things, but to date, we haven't made a commitment on, the scale of a facility or an institute that's dedicated to service. And I think that's something that's crucial. And I think it's something that can set us apart as an institution, because at the end of the day, we want to attract the best and brightest people to come to Duke. In order to do that, we have to give them the opportunities that they're looking for in a university. And so for me, I think that the board has to make a commitment to service. Whether that's by funding new programs that that are academically engaged in it, and it can't just be on the small scale of like Sanford, where you can do a service learning course. It needs to be on a bigger scale, where students can understand how to do service right, understand how to work with communities properly. Because I know there are a lot of Duke students that are really engaged and really want to work in that space, but when you're a senior and you're looking for jobs and you're looking for what you're going to do after graduation, you might not have had the training or the resources, or you might not feel comfortable saying, okay, I'm going to leave Duke and I'm going to go be a community organizer, or I'm going to leave Duke and I'm going to go work and help out at public schools or something like that. And we need to be able to produce students that are like that, because I think that when you compare Duke to its peers, you often see, and even internally at Duke, people are often pigeonholed into a specific set of career paths after they graduate. And I think in order to expand not only our student body's vision, but also outsiders looking in their vision of Duke, it's important that we make a commitment there. And by that I mean a financial commitment. And with Duke Forward coming up, I think there's potential to do that in a very meaningful way. So that's kind of my thoughts on that.
Great. Cool.